Hello, everyone. Welcome. How we doing? Good. Can you hear me okay in the back? All right. Thank you for joining us for a celebration of literature and living writers. My name is Megan Marshall. I'm the director of the Hugh C. Hyde Living Writers series. And this is the first of 3 events that are celebrating National Poetry Month. Woohoo! Yeah, you're supposed to get excited about that? Yes. And tonight's event is additionally exciting because it represents the collaborative efforts between multidisciplinary departments in SDSU's College of Arts and Letters. But before we get into things, I do want to thank those who have helped to make this series and this event possible, and that includes all of our friends here at Love Library, Markle Tumlin, my fabulous co-host. Yes. Also, Danya Muka Hall, Laura Bliss, and Rebecca Williamson. I'd also like to thank the Department of English and Comparative Literature for their continued support of this series, and a very, very special thanks to the Department of Spanish and Portuguese Languages and Literatures and the Camões Institute for their sponsorship for tonight. And finally, I'd like to acknowledge the space that we are privileged to share. For millennia, the Kumeyaay people have been a part of this land. This land has nourished, healed, protected, and embraced them for many generations. And as members of the San Diego State University community, we acknowledge their legacy. And just a few final reminders. If you have not done so already, please silence your cell phones. And know that this event is being recorded, but don't worry, all we see is this. To introduce tonight's esteemed guest author, I'd like to welcome Associate Professor of Portuguese and Brazilian Literature and Culture, Ricardo Vasconcelos.
Hello, good evening everyone. I'll try to make this quick, you're not here to listen to me. So my name is Ricardo Vasconcelos, I'm a professor here at San Diego State where I direct the Portuguese program. It is with great pleasure that I introduce Pedro Eiras, a distinguished and multifaceted Portuguese writer, considering he's a poet, as you'll see here today, but also a playwright, a fictionist, and an essayist. Although Pedro is not talking here in that capacity, he is likewise a professor of Portuguese literature at the University of Porto, where he also directs the Instituto de Literatura Comparada, Comparative Literature Institute, Margarida Loza. Pedro Eiras was born in Porto, Portugal in 1975. Since 2001, he has published several works of fiction, such as Bach, Cura, The Cure, Mapa do Mundo, the world map, and the Cartas, Reencontradas de Fernando Pessoa, the rediscovered letters of Fernando Pessoa. In the area of drama, he published Forte Cheiro, Maçã, a strong scent of apple, Uma Carta a Cassandra, a letter to Cassandra, Punhado de Terra, a handful of dirt, and Bela Dona. His essays include Tentações, Temptations. I have so many of his books here, I want to show some of them. Andrei's Icons, Constellations, which is actually a series of books. I'm always astonished by the productivity of Pedro. It's multi-volumes of comparative literature essays with Portuguese literature particularly, or Brazilian, or inter-artistic dialogues as well. Very creative kind of essays. Or still, amongst others, Esquecer Fausto, Forgetting Faust, this very large brick, I'm sorry to describe it as such, it's 800 pages essay, which received the 2005 Portuguese Pen Club Award for Essay. He has published other books whose genre he himself considers difficult to categorize. One of them, I believe, is a very interesting book called This Is the Way the World Ends, and this event allowed me to understand that I lost my copy of it. And it can be summarized as an anthology of the endings of very famous books, from Cervantes' Don Quixote to Defoe's Robinson Crusoe, amongst many others. And this, of course, let us wonder about the end of the world, right? Pedro Eiras' poetry includes the book Inferno. He has them there, but I want to just point them out. Inferno, which received the António Cabral Literary Award, Purgatório, and Paraíso, a trilogy from which you will hear here today. His literary writings strike a balance between his focus on what is to live in our contemporary world, with a constant sense of losing control over our options, and sometimes even our very real dramas, and a balance with literary erudition, frequently engaged with a strong sense of playfulness. A case in point is the fiction book I mentioned, The Rediscovered Letters of Fernando Pessoa. One of the greatest mysteries in Portuguese literature is the loss of this massive amount of letters sent by Lisbon-grounded poet Fernando Pessoa to his Paris-based fellow author and friend Mário de Sá Carneiro over the course of 4 years. It is a painful mystery since we can't help but grieve about the plausibly very rich content of Pessoa's epistolography. In this book, Eiras takes up the voice of Pessoa to present his own fictionalized letters and forges a cure for our condition, evidencing the silliness of our pain, quite frankly. This is a book that is at the same time highly informed as well as amusing, since Eiras knows profoundly the correspondence of Sá Carneiro to Pessoa, Pessoa's own work, and is inventive in his creation of Fernando Pessoa's themes, voice, and even his routine in Lisbon. A side story, I once met a collectionist who holds a number of Mário de Sá Carneiro's manuscripts, and he was very angry at Pedro Eiras, frustrated about the book, telling me it is inadmissible that a professor of literature from the University of Porto would deceive us all like that. He said, neglecting that very first word in the book flap is fiction. I just want to note some aspects of his poetry, leaving a bit aside the obvious connections to Dante's Divine Comedy. Pedro's humanist focus is quite clear and effective, taking into consideration aspects that range from the presence of the algorithm in our lives to the conditions of life of the most elderly and of the very processes of aging, particularly as experienced in Portugal, I would say. In his Inferno, his Canto 1 alludes to the GPS, that oracular satellite that guides all our steps. Sorry, I butchered that. To remind us that, I quote, there is always a moment in our lives in which we all lose ourselves. Of course, playing on the multiple meanings of losing, in Portuguese, perder or perder-se, from being disoriented to our death to even our moral perdition, and of course in dialogue with Dante. Canto 15 addresses the role of the algorithm in our lives, to point out that this algorithm may understand us better than the Minotaur in our own labyrinth. Knowing all of our details, and even those plans we have not dared to make, the algorithm is the new God, omniscient, and ironically is said to, I quote, understand you better than anyone else. In Purgatory, Canto 8 tells us of aging, the lives of the most vulnerable, and even of forms of dementia, to note that the proof that life is not fair is that we don't die the death we would like to. Death, it says, does not come from the outside, oxidizing kneecaps, bronchi, retinae, but from the inside, a weed growing in the memory of syllables. Purgatory is most definitely about this side of our lives, I believe, not beyond. Canto 9 speaks of precarious workers, reminding us that all life is precarious. This body leaks light everywhere. But that the markets, including job markets, can really be desolate spaces. Paradise's Canto 1 kicks off by pointing out that nothing is really as we were expecting it to be. And the Canto 9, for example, borrows from the past experiences of inquisitorial autos de fe, the burnings at stake, with their rituals of public shaming parades, somebody to dress judges and executioners, to speak of all of those who live among us today and are discriminated for their perceived differences on a daily basis. I won't read more of his poetry. I think Pedro will do a much better job. I want to thank my colleague Sandra Alcosser, with whom it is always a pleasure to work with. In the past, we have collaborated in bringing other Portuguese-speaking poets to the Living Authors series, namely Brazilian poet Angélica Freitas and Portuguese poet Ana Luísa Amaral. And I am happy that post-pandemic we can team up again. Thank you as well to Megan Marshall for organizing this evening event. And a great thank you is due to the Portuguese National Institute called Camões, Institute for the Portuguese Language and Development, for sponsoring all of everything, really. It is fitting that an institute that is named after the Portuguese Renaissance poet Camões, who traveled globally in the 16th century, would allow for the intercontinental travel of Pedro Eiras to lecture here to our students in here tonight and in multiple venues along the week. So thank you, Pedro, for being here, and thank you all the students. Okay, thanks.
Hello, everybody. Um, and thank you so much, Ricardo, for these words and for the invitation and for letting us know, my family, letting us know in San Diego and for the opportunity of being here. I'm so happy, and you have been such a wonderful host for these days. Thank you very much. Thank you also to all the translators of these poems, including Sandra Alcosser, who I just met, Philip Maechling, I don't know if I'm saying the words correctly, Thais Mitsuda Chagas, I think. Hello. Thank you very much for the hospitality, Megan. Thank you, everybody. These are great days for me. And before reading the poems, let me just add that I almost don't speak English ever. It's a very distant language for me, so I'm just terribly scared to be here. And at the same time, I should also say that, in fact, I like being scared. I think being scared is important. If you don't get scared sometimes, your life becomes very boring and you don't learn anything. So let's be scared together, I think. And let's see what happens. Inferno, Canto 1. Despite the maps, the astral charts, the inaudible probes pouring through our veins, the oracular satellite that guides our footsteps, our shadow, an arrow on the grid of the streets, despite the signal taking into consideration the effects of relativity in a synchronized GPS that guides our way onto the path of the Holy Spirit, despite the fact that there are no longer any nights, the lights blind us in a makeshift sun, despite the voice showing us the destination and drawing on the map the most perfect way, legends, memories, likenesses, a waste of light shared in the length of days. There always comes a moment in our lives in which we lose ourselves. Inferno, Canto 5. The suicides fall calmly from the roofs. Light, lucid, having contemplated the reasons for the steep slope they fall, shyly apologizing for the breeze rushing through the windows. Patiently, they go over the arguments of death, the fine print in the life insurance, a betraying word, this pain with no healing in a body that is no more. Death in slow motion, suspended in a cobweb. They think this boredom of breathing, this expectation of life as it should be, life in déjà vu, or as someone said, I fast because I never found anything I would like to eat, or anything like it. They calculate how vertical the building is, the speed of the fall. They are smart, lucid, and they step with the best intentions on the patina of hope. I almost wish them more faith, idiocy, muteness, ignorance. Inferno, Canto 8. What we see is terrible. But it's much worse what we don't see, because we don't know that we don't see it. Because telescopes and microscopes let us see the distant and the small. Because we invent instruments to see what we knew we could not see, but nothing to see what we do not know that we do not see. Because everyone knows their blindness only when it's too late. The wind has buried the ashes and no one knows where it all happened. Even what we see, we wear out by mistake, carelessness, we destroy it. And also because screwing things up ultimately distracts us. But we destroy even more what we do not see because we do not see it and do not even know we destroy it. And not seeing does not make us innocent, because we should see what we don't see. Still, we don't see what we do not see. I'll read the same poem in Portuguese. O que vemos é terrível, mas é muito pior o que não vemos, porque nem sabemos que o não vemos. Porque os telescópios, os microscópios, deixam ver o distante e o pequeno. Porque inventamos instrumentos para ver o que sabíamos que não víamos, mas nenhum para ver o que não sabemos que não vemos. Porque ninguém conhece a sua cegueira, senão demasiado tarde, quando o incêndio apagou, o vento enterrou as cinzas, e já ninguém sabe onde isto tudo aconteceu. Mesmo o que vemos, desgastamos. Por lapso, por incúria, destruímos. E também porque estragar, ao fim e ao cabo, nos distrai. Mas muito mais destruímos o que não vemos, porque não o vemos e nem sabemos que destruímos. E não ver não nos torna inocentes, porque deveríamos ver o que não vemos, porém não vemos o que não vemos. Inferno, Canto 15. Not the Minotaur, but the algorithm will understand you. Because, first, all the bulls are slaughtered, hung, skinned alive in our name. Ovid now is a carvalay, his all skin and bone has nowhere to fall dead. And on the other hand, second, the algorithm gets to know you. It knows the tiniest names, questions, searches, reservations, purchases, the doubts never resolved, slowly forgotten, old passwords replaced. It knows the dates, birthdays, even spam that was never opened, replies, forwards, the precise moment of a misunderstanding. Someone died and it was too late for you to ask for forgiveness. But above all, it knows your likes, preferences, advanced settings. How about some Chinese food? How about a vacation destination? How about a violent crime? And how would you like to die? Plus Proust questionnaire and your zodiac sign, including your ascendant's exceptions, that IQ test done for a little fun, to pass the time. It knows deep down the way of fingers in the net of the body, the meaning of life, the secret words, the three most popular phobias, and also the obsessive-compulsive disorder symptom checklist. And that you are not a robot, because you can identify traffic signs, mailboxes, traffic lights. It knows all of your likes, dislikes, and what to you is indifferent, irrelevant, offensive, or already acquired. The Esperanto of your dreams, your promises in vain, the betrayed commandments, the secrets spoken from the tomb. It knows more than a psychoanalyst, a confessor, a reader with ideal insomnia, more than a spiritist, a mentalist, a twin soul. All of our secrets in a web, data crossings, cell phone signals, images in the city's security cameras, ATM records. The algorithm, like God once, knows all and will understand you better than no one else. Purgatory, Canto 1. Of the three books, this one is perhaps the hardest to write. The windows are cloudy, couches have seen better days, the magazines are all from last year. I swear the clock hands walk backwards, and the passcode is long ago expired. But we cheat, erase the crosswords, start over. We pretend that the door opens and someone says our name, pretend that it is our time to sleep, a sleep of purification. Canto 8. That life is not fair is proved by us not dying the death we want. I, who knew all the words, am now condemned to forget them one by one, between corridors of light, pills, these white and anonymous faces. The body was falling into itself, legs, knees, hands shaking. I could still understand, even if it hurt to lose the steps, calculating the fall forward, and progressively declining the invitations, the world getting smaller each day. I, who described the skin of summer, high and sunny, and burning in the sands, now I am silent among corridors of light and white faces and corridors of light. The eyes refuse to unravel the letters under the useless lamp, and even the music is no longer as before, the mysterious law stronger than our bodies. All of that cost me, but I understood. And the losses were so slow, so small, that even the unbearable was bearable. Learning tricks, glasses, pills, compromises. Stay at home more. Be more careful in the wind. Take smaller steps. But we don't die the death we want. To me, it filled the anguish of seeing words detach from things, one by one, as dry lichens falling from tired trees, like the dark branches behind bars all night behind glass. For death does not arrive from outside, oxidizing kneecaps, bronchi, retinas, but from inside, with seeds dug in the memory of syllables, a bulb turning black, growing acidic, invasive, dissolving the edges of words, thus the edges of the world. And now I live, if I am still alive, between painful light and, have I already said this, white faces, apathetic, who at least don't suffer, don't seem to suffer from lack of a name, of a handrail to hold onto so they don't slip into full forgetfulness. White faces that circulate in the bright corridors, oblivious, ignoring even the branches, the bars, actually useless. Who would know how to hoist himself up at night? Ignoring everything. It's better this way to live, if that's living, without name, without form, without the memory of bodies and the summer that ended. What is this corridor, this silence? Where does it come from, this white light, this silence? And what is my name? I lost the words, the names, the silence against the useless high bars. If I have already said this, if this is living, if it's still me, this silence. Canto 11. Precarious we all already are. This body leaks light everywhere. It was pointless to put a lifetime on sale cheap. It wasn't worth complicating what was already complicated. To take away land, home, destiny, and in exchange impose laws to someone who was born with so little time and only 10 fingers, a tame voice, 24 hours a day speaking in a live microphone. Where do you see yourself in 10 years? They ask, and you answer according to the booklet. You are not a fool, even if you don't even know where you will be in 10 minutes. Perhaps on the edge of a tall glass, waiting for it to burst the foam, as in you burst the letters of your name. And what do you think you can bring to our company? The world, and the other, you promise, the Edelweiss in a salad, the Cerberus on a leash. To those born without insurance of the family wallet, it only remains to rob the banks and jump the missing 6 or 7 generations for a little peace of mind, living life at gunpoint, many mistakes, meager fortune, love postponed, some silence. Canto 17. Reflection, they say, is a virtue. Thus, they refuse to take sides. Othello was exaggerated, and Iago, given the context, might have had his reasons. It is strange to watch with them the comedy of the world. The victims, they say, were asking for it, and security forces couldn't help but impose the order of things. Otherwise, they say, it would be anarchy, and nobody wants anarchy, they say, making a fan with their program. It's so good to be cultured. Subscribe to the complete cycle. Thebes of the 7 gates, Elsinore, Mahagony, to comment on the excellent stage presence of that actor, what's his name? And then, on the way to the car, pick up the pace, hurry, hurry, when walking through the barrio. Portuguese. A ponderação, dizem, é uma virtude, tanto que se recusam a tomar partido. Otelo também era exagerado, e Iago, dado o contexto, lá terá tido as suas razões. É estranho assistir com eles à comédia do mundo. As vítimas, dizem, puseram-se a jeito, e as forças de segurança não podiam senão impor a ordem das coisas. Caso contrário, dizem, seria a anarquia, e ninguém quer a anarquia, dizem, fazendo um leque com a folha de sala. É tão bom ser culto, assinar o ciclo completo, Tebas, a das 7 portas, Elsinor, Mahagoni, comentar a tão boa presença em palco daquele ator, como é que se chama? E depois, a caminho do carro, estugar o passo, depressa, depressa, ao atravessar o bairro social. Paradise, Canto 1. Nothing here is what they told us it would be. Where we expected landscapes, plains fenced by calm mountains, blue sky, crystal clear water, and other comforting tautologies. The lion at peace, lying down with a sleeping gazelle, fur in matted fur, the beasts castrated, not in the flesh, but in deep needs. The fight not to be angry, the fight not to be hungry, no teeth, tongue, stomach, a glorious body, Olympic, athletic, revealing in every moment the occasion, and those smiling faces forever adults, a few more children, elders, as Buffets, enjoying the harmony of eternal midday, reclining in the shade of the vast beach without fear of snakes, venomous spiders, and reciting I don't know what words, maybe the Psalms of David, like in the covers of the leaflets, proclaiming what the Lord wants for you, what is there after death, or how the world will end. No, nothing here is how they told us it would be. Canto 4. Now this litter of letters called literature will cause you to lose your life, bypassing the light on the mountains, plunges into cool lakes, the ear searching for who know what that perhaps no one had ever encountered. Ora, esta tulha de letras, chamada literatura, merecerá que se perca a vida preterindo a luz sobre as montanhas, mergulhos nos lagos gelados, os anos à procura, sabe-se lá de quê, que talvez nunca ninguém tenha encontrado? Canto 9. The procession of heretics circles paradise 7 times. And where I write heretics, understand it is the ones that at some point were expelled, those which were called outcasts out on the street for evident impurity. Keep in mind, however, those who define holiness also define corruption, guilt, innocence. They write and enact the porter's regulations. Among those expelled, it is important to distinguish Some are banned by exorcisms or arbitrary executions and flashy penitential garments. They surrender to the secular forces who, when in doubt, prefer the heaviest hand. But others didn't wait for the verdict protected by laws. They packed a little suitcase, headed down the path to the freezing night, and without big words abandoned the drowsiness of the clouds. How could they stay in that intimate numbness if they lived outside those who have no name, don't even know their age, nor speak their language, our language, don't even memorize the list of presidents, they don't even know what it means, the word look. They never learned to say that things are so. And finally, Canto 16. This is my letter to a young poet. Of course, you have to learn to catch words in mid-flight, to master the curve of the prodigious leap. But don't neglect the precise articulation. Put 2 pebbles under the tongue, or half a dozen in the pockets, if the river is not flowing water, but lines carved in the margins. Weigh it therefore rigorously, the spectrum of alliterations. A comma is enough to jam the world. And yet, as the icon seller said in that square in Sofia, it's not you who chooses the icon, it's the icon that chooses you. Esta é a minha carta a um jovem poeta. Claro que tens de aprender a agarrar palavras em pleno voo e dominar a curvatura do salto prodigioso. Mas não descuides a articulação rigorosa. Põe 2 seixos sob a língua ou meia dúzia nos bolsos. O rio não é água que corre, mas as linhas talhadas nas margens. Pesa, pois, com rigor o espectro das aliterações. Uma vírgula é suficiente para encravar o mundo. E, contudo, como dizia o vendedor de ícones naquela praça de Sófia, não és tu que escolhes o ícone, é o ícone que te escolhe a ti.
Have another round for Pedro. Some time for a little discussion, a couple questions. I think we might start off with perhaps a couple comments from our translators on the collaborative efforts, if possible. Sandra, Thais, Ricardo, or if we have a question we want to jump into. Yes?
I have to say that this is the very first time that I hear the author of poet read in English and get us into the poem. I think you're fantastic. And the translation?
Yes. Thank you for that comment. Other questions? You might want to start us off with? Yeah.
Você fala inglês muito bem. Não deve ser assustado.
Yeah.
In Purgatory, you start off on the contest saying that Purgatory is perhaps the hardest book to write. Maybe it's the cynic in me, but given the contemporary subject matter, I would have thought Paradise would be the most difficult to write, just because I don't see how you'd be able to find lasting contentment. A little addition to that, could you clarify what you were seeing paradise as, like what you were writing about when you were talking about paradise?
Thank you. Thank you, the three of you. And first of all, I think I won my day. Of course I did. And my week and my month, probably, and the year. Thank you very much. About these two questions, these two very important questions. Let me start by the second one. Sometimes you have to invent paradise. And that's why I begin by saying that paradise is not what they told me it would be, what I read about, what they promised me, and so on. Of course, I only read 4 poems from each book. It's not very much. And Paradise is a book about people, real people that really existed, and they are all dead, I think, but they fought all the time. They were furious. I use the word furia a lot in this book. I think if you try to find something that unites all those people, it's probably this sense of fury against the world as it is. I mean, they refused the world they encountered and they suffered a lot. Anyway, I do believe that is paradise for me. Not the contemplation, the apolitical contemplation of some utopia already there, but the urge to fight for something that is not yet. And that's why all my heroes, these men, these women, these people that I put in paradise, were not happy. But they were in paradise and maybe they didn't know. I'm not sure, maybe they did, maybe they didn't. But anyway, they were there, they were doing the right thing, the very hard, very difficult, very painful thing to do. And they were right. About the first question, you know, you shouldn't take writers too seriously. I shouldn't have said that. You don't say that. There is this very big challenge about Purgatory because it's the middle place. It's very easy to write about hell. So the Dante's Inferno, I think he was at ease. And then things become very complicated because Purgatory is not hot, it's not cold, it's not burning, it's not freezing, it's nothing. It's silence. It's not all that spectacular. That's why I felt I should reveal this kind of difficulty for me. What do you say about those who are waiting? And that's why I begin by that poem about people that wait in very dull waiting rooms, reading magazines and making crosswords. They are waiting for something. They don't know when somebody is going to call for their names and open the doors and decide their fate. But anyway, when you feel you have this difficulty, you write about the difficulty. That's a trick. If that's useful for you, please take this advice. If it's hard to write about something, write about how it is hard to write about something. And it works, it really works. Paradise is hard to encounter when you watch television, the news. It's not made to show you paradise. you have to find in the subtitles. In the subtitles of the subtitles, it's quite invisible. But when you find it, it's very colorful finally. So when I have pages and poems about Charlie Chaplin, for instance, or the French philosopher Simone Weil, who died in 42. She let herself die in hunger. Or, I don't know, Pier Paolo Pasolini, the filmmaker, one of my heroes, of course. Or so many people from maybe the prehistorical times to today. Then you find your path and it works. They speak to you, they guide you, more than those who are in purgatory, I think. I don't know everything about these books. It's very strange, but the author sometimes knows less than everybody else. So the fact that I'm speaking here with you about my point of view is not enlightening. Maybe it's misleading because I'm not sure I know the answers. Maybe I'm a kind of imposter? Yes? Maybe I'm not Pedro Eiras. I don't know, maybe I'm not.
I know he's
All writers are imposters in some way. How about other questions or thoughts? Yeah.
In Paradise Canto 4, was that kind of like a warning for other writers or other people who are really deep into literature, maybe, to not lose themselves in it and maybe like exist in the moment a little bit more?
Answer: no, it's a warning for me. Just for me. It's a kind of little note to remember later, a question, a real question I don't know the answer. Sometimes I wake up and that's yes, it is a problem, literature is a problem. Some other days I wake up and I just say, no, let's do it. It's worth it. And then, I don't know. I really don't know. There is this idea I like very much. Well, it comes from the Greeks, but Jacques Derrida uses it. He says, nobody knows if his or her life is useful till the day she dies. I mean, just in the last minute, you can tell if life was useful and had a sense, a purpose. For literature, it's the same thing. Should I write or should I just live like Arthur Rimbaud, for instance? Should I quit writing because there is the sun outside? Some people say, I should stop writing, I should start living. Life is outside, I'm here writing. I don't agree. I think writing is living in a very powerful way, in fact. You use the words to tell stories, to think, to make humor, to write poems, to challenge your understanding of grammar. That's important. That's more important than we can tell, we can think. Because usually we don't have time, you have to run to the metro, run to the train, run because you have a class to attend, a class to lecture. And you don't have time to look at the words and the grammar. You believe that dictionaries and grammars already have defined everything. And what's incredible about writing is that all rules stop working. I mean, when you write, you're responsible for following the rules if you want, or changing the rules all the time. You can do that when you are working, for instance. If you want to put the verb before the subject, or if you want to use 7 adjectives together, or if you want to avoid the letter A, for instance, in your words, why not? That's challenging, and so on. You cannot do that. You just can't. You have no place and no time and no liberty to do that. There is, if I'm speaking too much, please interrupt me, but there is this idea of Roland Barthes, which I like very much. He says, we are not free with our language. We are obligated to use our language in a fascist way. What does he mean by this? He means that in fascism, you have no right to remain silent. You have to say the same things as other people say. So if you have lots of people saying something for the dictatorship, you cannot stay silent because that would be a terrorist act. Silence may be a form of resistance. So if we don't have the power to remain silent or to say forbidden sentences and so on, and if we are obligated to say the words of the power, then language is fascist. And that's where Roland Barthes starts to think and to write. What can I do if I'm obligated to use certain words? And where can I find a space of freedom where I can say other words or even no words at all? Where is my space of free silence? I think I'm lost. I don't remember the question now.
I have one comment and a question. The comment was about what Maria said when you mentioned that Pedro involves you when reading in language outside of any original, mostly in English. And I think that's obviously a tribute to what Pedro was doing in his reading, but I really do think it is also a tribute to the translators. And a statement to the translators, and in particular, I was thinking of Sandra, because the work is really, really, really good. The translation was excellent. You know, so I was reading passages and thinking, wow, this will work. And so the question was for Sandra. How was it like to translate Sandra, and Thais was here as well? How was it? I don't think Philip is here.
No.
How was it like translating him?
Yes, yeah. Now you're going to see the work behind the work.
Inferno.
Okay, this is simply one page of about 30 pages. And I apologize to all of you who are native Portuguese and also eloquent English speakers. Basically what I'm doing is what is often done in poetry, in that we get a literal translation done by someone who is native or is very confident with the language. And there's a whole history of this in English poetry. W.S. Merwin, who is a very highly respected American poet, paid a visit to Ezra Pound in the hospital, and he said he was all of 18 years old, and he said to Pound, I want to be a poet. I'm going to be a poet. Tell me what to do. So Pound said, well, you must translate 75 lines a day. No, you must write 75 lines a day. And he was the great rule maker. He was always telling other poets what to do. And he said, but you have nothing to say. You're 18, wasn't it? And therefore, you must translate 75 lines a day. Merwin went on to become one of our great translators in poetry in languages where he was working from a literal translation and it was not specifically his language. I say that as just to let you know what we're doing here. So why get into this? My husband is the Peace Corps of Fulbright gave him native speaker capability for Brazilian Portuguese. And so over the holidays, he was down from Montana, and we just got together and worked on this. And I also brought Thais in for Purgatory, because she is also a Brazilian Portuguese speaker. And it's always made clear to me that it's not the same. It's Portugal's Portuguese and Brazil's Portuguese are two different things. So I knew that we were going to need a little counsel. And then Ricardo came into this. And so this is how we put, this is a simple one. Some of them have 3 across. So on the first side you see the Portuguese. And now this is Philip Maechling's translation. So not the Minotaur, but the algorithm will understand you because all the bulls were slaughtered, hung, skinned alive in our name. Ovid. Now this is Ricardo. Cars in the street. It's ubiquitous. Oops.
I'm just trying to make it bigger, so it's easier to
It's ubiquitous. Is that ubiquitous?
Sorry. My bad.
Homeless person trying to help you park your car downtown and asking for a coin. Okay.
Which is in Brazilian Portuguese, not a homeless, but a flying bean.
Yeah.
So it's completely different than Brazil.
So so this is what I am doing I'm creating the poetry from that. But I noticed, and I can't wait, in fact, if we can't get it for a while, I'm gonna beg you to read it into your phone, because I was changing things as you were reading. I leaned over and said to Ricardo, where we talk about the porters, and I said, oh, should it be janitors? Because that word could be porter or janitor. So this is basically, skin and bone doesn't know how cold to. He's all skin and bone, nowhere to fall dead. On the other hand, okay, so can you put the poem?
The original or the finished?
No, the finished one. So not the Minotaur, but the algorithm. So many of the things are the same. We'll understand you because first all the bulls were slaughtered, hung, skinned alive in our name. So now my next question for him, for Pedro, is you put it in present tense. You said all the bulls are slaughtered, hung, skinned alive. So we need to talk about that and find out what you would prefer. Ovid now is a car valet. I like that. He's all skin and bone. There's nowhere to fall dead, on the other hand, so forth and so on. So you see, there's a leaping that takes place in each one of these steps. So now, Thais, you want to come and talk about the experience of Purgatory?
Sure. Hi, everyone. This was my first official experience translating. I guess I did translations in my head when I'm Brazilian, so I would translate things that I wrote when I wanted to change something to English or Portuguese, but I never translated anything from someone else. So that was a wonderful experience. Thank you for the opportunity. So I'm not going to be talking about any techniques or anything, because I don't think I'm prepared to tell anyone how to do that. But just one thing that I learned is how much poetry is about giving, and that's the way I see it. Because translation really shows how poems will change, and you cannot. I guess that would open a huge philosophical debate, but the poem has an essence. When you translate it, I guess what we are trying to do is maintain that essence. But the essence will change the way it is portrayed, and in that process, people will get different meanings. And I think translation really showed me how we write as reminders for ourselves, but mostly to the people who are going to read it and interpret as they want. And we can't really be so attached to the words, even though as writers we're just using words. It's pretty much all we have, but we can't be attached even to that, because that's going to change if you want to really share it. So I guess that's everything I have to say. Thank you.
Any other questions or questions for our translators? Well, how about another round of applause for this collaboration? And thank you to all of you. We appreciate you being here. Go forth and celebrate National Poetry.
Thank you.
Are you about to get this phone out? Yeah.